What is up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. It's another edition of the preview show. This is week 12. I cannot believe that we're literally 1 week away from the last week of the regular season. It goes by so quickly. It's pretty much over it like a blink of an eye. I mean, I always try to tell my fiance, because she always makes fun of me because how much attention I pay to this stuff. And I'm just like, you know what? It is 4 months out of the year. And, literally the rest of the year, there's like nothing that I like focus as much attention, obviously, because I turned this into a business. But, it is a great sport. I love it. It has a lot of flaws. I was even talking to someone that played for UCLA today, speaking of the UCLA-USC rivalry, but I talked to him today. And he was just saying how much, you have issues with the coaches getting a lot of money. You have issues with like transfer portal stuff. And it's like, you know what? The way college football is right now is obviously not perfect. And, but there's something that I believe is good. I believe the NIL is giving the athletes an upper hand here. I think they're getting money, which they deserve. They deserve to be paid. And that is happening, which is great. I think that they could, I've heard other people talk about the not the buybacks, but the payouts for if coaches get fired, which that needs to go away because I don't think any sport has that. And that pretty much gave Jimbo the incentive not to succeed. He didn't care. Because if he got fired, he was going to get this golden parachute. He's making like 76 million or whatever it is just to leave. And like he's set for the rest of his life. He doesn't have to do anything. He never has to work again. He literally has all this money. He can like buy all kinds of things. Like he could start other businesses and do other things. Like this was his way out.
Yeah.
And he was and as much as it is bad for college football, it was smart on his part, which is predominantly doing with his agents workings. But so all right, speaking of it being the second to last week, there's a lot of news going on. I wanted to specifically talk about first we had Jimbo getting fired, then the Boise State coach got fired, then Mississippi State coach got fired. And then there's reports yesterday saying Chip Kelly is going to get let go after the USC game, which, I'm surprised they just didn't fire him. I don't know why that would be out there because I saw it on multiple things. So that seems more than likely at this point now. And then, there's some rumors about Billy Napier. There's a lot of, even since Sunday, there's already been like 2 other decommits that have happened. Mac, the DB, and then Nasir Johnson, the defensive lineman. So, it's with recruiting, it's always like I try not to pay attention to it. A lot of the guys that I follow on Twitter are really deep into it, and I try not to put my nose into it because it's just not something I enjoy. And I only really have been up on it because of the people that I follow are really into it. So it kind of bleeds into my timeline on Twitter. So I happen to see it more often than not, more than I would like to. And so now it's like, the Barbarians are at the gate because they're ready to get rid of Billy because of these decommits. Because they say the only reason that Billy's there is because of the recruiting. And if the recruiting is not there, then there's no reason for him. But like we were talking about beforehand, it seems likely that he's going to stay and that, the powers that be, the boosters and the people in charge at Florida are not wanting to change hands again. They've done so in the last 12, 13 years 4 times. They really don't want to do a 5th time already so soon. So they want to see if something sticks. And I agree. I think that's the format here. This is what they need to do. Just let this play out. Obviously this year is a bit of a wash, but I even said that in the beginning of the year. I thought this year was going to be, kind of like a bonus year. Like if they did well, it's great, but they're more than likely going to go like 6-6, 7-5, which they may not even go that at this point.
Yeah.
But it still, it doesn't matter. They have a ton of freshmen playing on defense, a ton of freshmen playing on offense. That's going to pay dividends to next year. There's very few seniors and very few even juniors in that as well. So this team is going to be very experienced next year. Definitely the defense needs to step up, because I was looking at the offensive stats and for the passing yardage and total yardage, the Florida offense is like 45th in the country. So obviously the offense is not the problem here. It definitely is the defense, which is like 70 something in total defense right now. So something needs to change. It's going to be 2 tough games coming up. The Missouri game and then the Florida State game. But actually, what I wanted to talk about before we get into the other games is the conference stuff. I don't know how much you looked into it. I know we did it last week a little bit, but now it's getting more clarity. I looked at all of the breakdowns and like the tiebreakers and such. So like it looks like Tulane is more than likely going to get the AAC. They just have to win one of the games. I think they have UTSA and FAU. And so if they win one of those games, they go, and then it's like a 3-way jam between like Memphis, UTSA, and SMU. So it's more than likely Tulane, because if they beat FAU, I think they get it, because they would have the tiebreaker on UTSA, because I think they would only have I think 1 loss at that point in conference. But then the interesting ones are obviously the Big 12 and the Pac 12. Big 12 is like such a logjam. There's like 6 teams, and it's like I'm not even trying to decipher that one, because like all of them like kind of play each other, and like there's all like scenarios that like almost every one of them has a likely shot. So it's like almost no one's out there. The ACC, Louisville wins and they're in, or they need North Carolina to lose the last one of 2. So is more than likely Louisville can do that, because they play Miami, even though it's going to be a tough game. But Big 10, it's likely Iowa, and Ohio State, and Michigan winner. But potentially Nebraska too, because Nebraska does play Iowa the last week. But I think it would have to be Iowa would have to lose both the last 2 games.
And to Nebraska, yeah.
Yeah. And then SEC's already decided. It's already Alabama, Georgia. And then Pac-12, Washington wins and they're in. And if Oregon wins too, then they're in. But if Washington loses and Oregon wins, then the winner of Oregon State. Wait, how do I have this? If Washington loses, because that would mean losing to Oregon State, and Oregon wins, which they were playing Arizona State, then the winner of Oregon State, Oregon, I believe, yes. Okay, yes. So it would be if Washington loses to Oregon State and Oregon wins, then the winner of Oregon State, Oregon would get in. But then you also have to remember there's Arizona, which if they win out, they have a chance as well. They have a tough road because they play Utah. But it would follow their tiebreaker, which their tiebreaker is like common opponents per win percentage, and then the only other one that was different that did CFP rankings for a tiebreaker was the AAC. So there's a lot of scenarios here. They're really the only two that are technically decided per se are probably the SEC and the Big Ten. So there's a ton to happen the next 2 weeks, and then as well with the conference championship games too. So nothing is really decided playoff wise, which makes it more interesting. But if we come into a scenario like next year where it's 12 teams,
it's much more wide open.
Yeah, it opens the door for like countless teams. So that is a completely different game, and I'm totally excited about that. I know we've talked about that plenty, so let's move on. Actually, real quick, who do you have in your Heisman list? Because we haven't done that in a while. I know I've kind of let that slip, but I've been trying to just decide if like waiting later in the year is probably better off, and I think that's probably the case here. So who do you have like top 3 or 4 guys you've got?
Yeah, so the top ones I have right now, no particular order. Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr., Blake Corum, and Bo Nix.
Yeah, and I feel I think maybe Blake Corum is probably the one that I'm like, I mean, not like he's had a lot of games where he's disappeared, which is probably to do with Donovan Edwards stealing his carries, but the rest of those guys for sure. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a stud. Bo Nix has been balling out. Michael Penix Jr. is killing it, and Jaden Daniels. I think those 4 are the ones that are going to be in New York. I think right now it's like there'd have to be like something drastic in the next 2 weeks for that to not be the case, and it seems likely. Jaden Daniels, man, it was historic last week. I think he was the first person ever with, what was it, like over 300 yards passing and
200 rushing,
250 rushing. Yeah. So it was like, yeah. So it was. I mean, he obviously Florida's defense is terrible, but still the numbers that he's put up have been remarkable. Okay, so let's jump into it. The first game we've got, and I'm going to talk about UCLA because of Chip Kelly. So, it's UCLA, USC. It's a big rivalry game. I might end up going to this game. I haven't decided yet. I still really do want to watch the Florida Missouri game because I'm hoping that Florida can pull that one off. But no, so UCLA comes to this game with a lot of losses lately, and Chip Kelly is on the verge of being fired. It seems likely at this point, and it's what will motivate this team. I mean, their defense is strong. They make a lot of plays. They hold a lot of teams to lower yardage totals all year. They've basically been in every game they've played because of their defense, and it's a shame because all they really needed was like above average quarterback play, and right now they'd probably be like 8-2, and it's a shame. Because they could have easily beaten Utah because they were stifling that offense, to nothing. I think they only allowed 7 points, against Utah on against their defense because the other one was a pick 6. Yeah, and it's like, I think what it boils down to with the whole Chip Kelly thing is he had DTR for 5 years or whatever it was, and he never developed another quarterback besides that. And because of that, it put a huge hole in his quarterback room. He brought in Devin Moore, which was great. He is a stud and going to be a good quarterback, but you cannot expect an 18-year-old to be good at college football. It's just not possible. There's very few instances of a freshman quarterback actually doing well. Like I can't even recall any time of one being good. Most of the time that a quarterback has done well as a redshirt freshman, which means an additional year away from high school. So that is a big difference from a kid that is a 18-year-old kid. And I'm not denying his talent. I know he's going to be good. I'm just saying that it was too much of a struggle this year to rely on him to be the savior when they just had holes. Schlee was obviously not a well-rounded quarterback, and Garbers in some ways is all right, but then he got hurt, and so it really kind of just derailed everything. I don't know. It's a shame. I thought this team was going to be better this year. Obviously the Pac-12 is a beast this year. This has been, like we've said all year, this has been the best Pac-12 in like ever. I don't think I ever remember a Pac-12 conference race being as good as it is.
They're going out with a bang.
Yeah, and it's been great. I've loved every week. The Washington Oregon game was amazing. Almost every game Utah has had has been a close game. They've played everyone close, and and more power to them, considering that they were having a quarterback like Barnes, who's obviously not that talented, but he still held his own. He played really well against USC, and kept them in the Washington game, and it's been remarkable. It's been a great run. I love what Washington and Oregon are doing. I can't wait to see that game, the conference championship game, because then what's going to happen, which will be crazy, is if they both get there as Washington undefeated and Oregon with one loss, and if Oregon wins that game, what do you do in that instance when it's like they already played each other head-to-head twice, and one beat the other at home and the other beat the other on a neutral site? I think you kind of have to give it to Oregon there. But at the same aspect, Washington has had a harder schedule. It'll be crazy if that happens, because if it's, two one-loss teams from the Pac-12, how do you deny either of them? They may deny both, which that would be even worse if that happens. I can't imagine the playoff committee seeing both of those teams with one loss out of that gauntlet of a schedule that they've had this year and being like, oh yeah, we're not going to go with either of these teams. I would be pissed if I were either of those teams. But let's get back to USC UCLA, because we've been obviously talking about the Pac-12 in general. But USC, this would be a great way to finish the year. This is the last game of the year for them, besides a bowl game, and potentially Caleb's last game, because I don't know if he's going to play in the bowl game, but he's definitely going to play in this game. And, winning this game, winning a rivalry game, going out 8-4 after, tough losses, it would be a good way to finish it off. And I think they can. I think they can score enough points. UCLA's offense is pretty putrid because of the quarterback situation. So I think USC can score enough to be able to withstand that defense. I'm going to say they put up like 35, and then UCLA puts up like 20. What do you got?
Yeah, so for this one, it is kind of a interesting thing, because you're dealing with a really bad defense, historically bad, of USC against a really bad offense of UCLA, who right now is, just trending backwards. And a lot of that can go into the fact that they don't really have a well-developed quarterback in play. But you're right on the fact that UCLA has kept them in games based on their defense, still the top 10 defense in the country. For me, though, as it would be good for SC to finish the year, 8-4, and in front of the home crowd, and beating a rival and UCLA. But my whole thing is that USC has struggled mightily against very well developed defenses. I don't know if this counts as an upset, but I'm going to take UCLA in this one. I think UCLA is going to pull it off. They're going to contain Caleb Williams and really, force him to win the game. Because with how bad SC's defense is, I can see UCLA at least putting up more than 25 points. And I think that can really, be the driving force to help the defense as well. So I'm going to take UCLA winning this one. I'm going to go I'm going to go 30-28 Bruins.
The last thing I want to mention on this one is UCLA, if they do fire Chip Kelly, I think the smart thing to do would be to put the defensive coordinator Lynn as interim head coach for the rest of the year. And then what they should do is they should hire this guy because he looks like, I mean, he obviously knows what he's doing on defense, and the defense has been amazing considering the offenses he's gone up against in the Pac-12 and how well they've done. Like nationally, they're ranked highly. So I would keep Lynn on, and then I would go after a very young offensive coordinator to spice up this offense a little bit and try to keep Devin Moore. I mean, I think that's like honestly keeping Devin Moore has got to be goal number one. And Richard, my friend that keeps sending me inside info about UCLA, he said, he posted he gave me those tweets about his grandmother being pissed, Devin Moore's grandmother. And it's like, yeah, like they're not happy with what's going on. And it's like, I think they have a situation where they can ride this out. And if they can get defensive coordinator Lynn, I can't remember his first name, but Lynn, into the head coaching position and then go from there. The kid seems to know what he's doing. He obviously was a safety coach in the NFL. He's definitely got enough, wherewithal to get to these organizations and do well. So he's a very smart kid. Put him in a position and then hire an offensive coordinator that can run the offense. Okay. Next game we've got USF, and I'm wearing my green, and I know Ian's got his shirt on too. USF-UTSA. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, the video is like blanking out, but whatever. So UTSA's quarterback, what is it? Harris? No.
Yeah,
Ian.
it's can you hear me?
Yeah, what is UTSA's quarterback name? What's his last name?
It's Frank Harris.
Frank Harris, yeah. So Frank Harris obviously has been hurt most of the year. He's back in finally, so he's probably going to have a good game because this USF defense has been largely, faltering. They had a better game against Temple. They caused 4 turnovers, which were huge, but still Temple moved the ball pretty well at times against them. I think UTSA will probably score at least 35, maybe even 42 points. I'm going to say USF, though, can score on this UTSA defense because other teams have. Tennessee did, which Tennessee is a very similar defense or offense as USF's because, Golish learned from Josh Heupel at Tennessee. So I think that this offense with Byron Brown, which has put up tons of numbers all year, he's one of the best numbers-wise quarterback in the entire country with total yardage. I can see him putting up 300 yards in the air again and maybe like 80 on the ground. I can see Naquan Wright having a good game. I can see Sean Atkins putting up even more numbers to his record that he's been putting up single season wise. And it'll probably be a close game, I'm thinking. And I know UTSA is obviously a better team than USF currently, especially the last couple of years. But I think South Florida can play in this game. They're looking to be bowl eligible. They're 1 win away. they'll likely do it against Charlotte, but to get it against UTSA would be even bigger. I think they can win this game, but I think that UTSA is going to win. So I'm going to say UTSA wins like 38 to like 32. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, for me in this one, because I actually think both these teams are even except for USF's defense, obviously. And I feel like USF is just going to straight up play it in a shootout. And I do think they're going to score a lot in UTSA. And I had this, regardless of it being USF, this was definitely for me like an upset watch type deal. UTSA has rattled off, constant wins. I think they've won like 6 in a row as of right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my thinking was UTSA, the best chance USF has is that UTSA just goes into this sleepwalking. Because what it looks like is that USF has more to play for. They are more motivated because they're going to do anything possible. I've seen these practices to get to this bowl game.
Yeah.
The one thing not considered though was who UTSA plays next week is Tulane. So if they drop this to USF and then drop to Tulane, they're out of the conference championship. It would be Tulane and SMU.
Right.
So now UTSA cannot afford to slip up. And I think that the motivation is going to be the biggest thing. I don't see UTSA just, going into the sleepwalking, knowing they have to win these next 2 games to go to the conference championship. So when it comes out of this, I think USF is going to give them one hell of a scare because both these teams are fighting for very different things and they both want it really bad. But when it comes down to it, I think UTSA, as of right now, has the better team. So I'm going to take the Roadrunners winning this one. I'll take it in a shootout. I'll go 45-35 UTSA.
All right. So next one we got is Florida, Missouri. I think that Florida can win one of these next 2. I like their chances against Florida State because it's a home game, it's a rivalry game, it's senior night. It's a sold out swamp. It's at night. This game is a little bit more difficult. It's on the road. They've had trouble against Missouri in the past. I think they're like 6-6 or like 5 and either 6-6 or 6-5 against Missouri throughout their history playing them since they've been in the conference. Missouri's offense is very good. Brady Cook, Luther Burden, Schrader, like all these guys are very good. Even some of the other non-stars are pretty solid as well. Their defense is very solid, probably one of the better defenses in the entire country. And it's been a large reason why they have been in every game they've played, even that game against Georgia on the road against 2-time defending national champion. They held their own and they were right there at the very end. And, I don't know. This game is definitely tough to gauge because it's like Florida could get blown out, and that would be a very terrible thing because then, the hot seat will get even hotter. But I don't know. I see them. I see the way they competed against LSU. I see what the offense has done the last couple of weeks. The only real team that has stopped them lately was Georgia, and I think Georgia's got a way better defense than Missouri's. Not that Missouri's is terrible. Obviously, I praised it earlier, but I'm just saying, like, Georgia's is always top 10, maybe even top 5, while Missouri's is maybe like, I'd say top 20. They gave up a lot of points to LSU as well. They gave up a decent amount of points to Kansas State. They gave up a bunch to Georgia. So you can score on this team. It's not like you can't. But I will counter, they performed well against Tennessee, but so did Florida. Florida fared well against Tennessee too. So this is a tough one to say. I think Florida, if they can if they can come out the way they did against LSU offensively, I think they have a shot. I think that they need to just, keep that momentum going as far as what they're doing on offense. If they, I know they had a lot of success out of 12 personnel running the ball against LSU. And, it's, I think they can do the same, but I'm not sure because it's like the linebackers at Missouri are way more adept than the linebackers at, outside of Harold Perkins at LSU. So I don't know. I think this Missouri team may be able to stuff them running wise, which would then force Florida to be in a pass first situation, which is not where they want to be. They do like running the ball. I think I don't know, but at the same time, I think that Billy knows that a lot is on the line here, and that he needs to get at least one victory because one victory is bowl eligibility, and then two, it also stops this losing streak because they can't go on a 5-game losing streak to end the year. That would be that would be not good. That could lose his job. But I think again, what I've tried to articulate is that I think Florida State is the more winnable game. Yes, I know they're a better team than Missouri, but how much better? Because Missouri's already ninth in the CFP. That's only like 5 spots away from Florida State. So obviously, people think very highly of Missouri. So I think I think this is going to be a tough game. I think they're probably going to lose, but it could be close. And I'm hoping that it's close because I think losing this as a close game would go a long way, even though, still losing is terrible. I'm going to say Florida probably loses or Missouri wins probably like uh, 32 to like 27. What do you got?
Yeah, same here. Both of these offenses are actually pretty even with each other. And if you look at the rankings, I know per SEC, Missouri ranks 5, and actually Florida ranks 6 in total offense this year. Um, with that being said, then it's going to come down to defense, and it's clear Missouri has the better defense. And for me, when it gets to this, I think Florida will score. When they score is going to be the issue, and can the defense get enough stops? And that is a resounding no. This defense has not proven anything to me since the Vanderbilt game, but they can get clutch stops when it matters. Again, I'm always going to point back to Arkansas. If you can't stop the worst defense in the SEC, what makes you think you could stop the 5th best or the best, as stated last week? So when it gets down to this one, the other thing, also doing my homework, since Missouri joined the conference, obviously this has been, for whatever reason, the weirdest thorn in Florida's side, since, the expansion in 2012. When it was a night game in Columbus, and the temperatures were below 50, Florida has won one game when it was a night game, and when the temperatures were below 50, 0 games in Missouri. They have won at night below 50. So history's not looking too good. And with the way the defense has been playing, I just don't see it. I think Missouri pulls away with it. I'm going to go 34-27 Tigers.
Okay, do those stats real quick again because I was looking at something else. Tell me those
So,
stats real quick.
Since Missouri joined the conference in 2012,
Yeah.
Florida has only won one night game in Missouri, and that was in 2015. But it was at the beginning of the season. I even looked this up. Temperatures were around above in the high 60s. They have never won.
How many night games have there been? There haven't been that many night games in Columbia.
Out of this is 1, 2. So there were eight. There have been 5, and
there have been 5 night games.
Yeah, and only out of, let's see, this is the 8th time they would have played them in Columbia.
Yeah.
I might have mixed up like one in the swamp and one of the. So I might be weirding this out, but I do know they've only won. Turn it the other head. They've only won one game when it was below 50 on the other side of that, and they've never won when it was night and below 50. Clearly, I'm doing way too much homework for this stuff.
No, I guess the reason why I'm questioning is because I remember what is it? I know years past it was like 2014 that they played in Missouri, or no, 2013 they played in Missouri, and
that was afternoon.
That was an afternoon game, and then they played
2015. Yeah,
2015 was a night game, and then last time they were there, I'm almost positive it was a day game.
That was a night game. That was the overtime. That was Dan Mullen's last game.
Oh, you know what? I never even watched that game. I'm pretty sure I was like flying back from Florida, or it was like it was my brother's wedding. That's what it was. Yes.
Yeah, the last time they played an afternoon game was in 2019. And that is the only game they have won in Missouri where it was below 50 degrees.
Yeah, and so that was okay. So that was this doesn't matter. This is like, I know we're just like kind of figuring it out. I mean, I know it's obviously people like to bring up the fact that teams from Florida struggle in cold weather. And I know it's a thing, but I don't know.
It's just a useless stat. I mean,
I know.
It's the equivalent. I call this is like my ESPN stat. Like whenever I watch hockey, they give some stupid thing like, oh, the team that scores first when it was a full moon and the ice was below 30 degrees north of Canada has this record. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah, for
this
sure.
is a who cares stat. It's just stuff.
No, I'm glad you brought it up though, because it is fair to look at that, and it's like largely a lot of those stats have to do with the fact that Missouri probably had the better team in most of those matchups. So
that is also true.
Yeah, so that helps a massive amount. This the Bucks had those stats for years where it was like couldn't play in like 30-degree weather or whatever, and then it was like once they got better, it was like, oh, that kind of goes away because the team's better. It's like,
yeah,
it's like less to do with like the actual temperature and more to do with the fact that the team just wasn't good enough to be able to win. Okay, let's move on to the rest of college football. There's not that many big games this week because a lot of teams play cupcakes. So we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 games besides the ones that we cover predominantly. So let's talk about one of the bigger ones, Louisville, Miami. Louisville has a chance, like we said, if they win, they're in against Florida State in the ACC championship game. I think that with Miami losing their quarterback, Emory, having to go back to Tyler Van Dyke, it's going to struggle in this one because Louisville's defense plays pretty strong. Louisville will score enough points. I think it's going to be a close one, but I'm going to say Louisville wins like 28-24. I think Miami maybe like, kind of, they're pretty much like, well, this season's a wrap. They lost to Florida State. They really haven't done much all year. They beat Clemson, which has been, a huge game that they haven't been able to win in a long time. So that's something. But they've got 4 losses. I think Louisville wins this one. I like Louisville because, yes, they had the hiccup against Pitt, but every other game they've looked really well. They were a little bit behind against Virginia there, and then they had to come back there in the fourth quarter. So obviously they can be had. I think this Louisville team, though, is playing with house money right now, and I think they win this one, like I said, 28-24. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, for me in this one, with Louisville having the number 1 defense in the ACC, it's going to be really tough for Miami to get the ball moving around, and they have really struggled the past 2 weeks against NC State and especially against Florida State to really come up with sustained drives. Usually, the only time they have been scoring is when they're on the right side of their own 50. So I don't think Louisville is going to allow that. I think they're going to make it pretty difficult. Also, another useless fact: Miami hasn't won in regulation since September. All of their wins have been in overtime since then. With that being said, I think Louisville puts this one away. They just, really limit Miami's air game and contain it up the middle. So I'm going to go Louisville winning this one, not a high scoring one, but I'm going to go with a 24-10 victory for the Cardinals.
Okay, next one has some consequences for Big 12, which a couple of these games we have are Big 12 matchups. Oklahoma, BYU. It's in God, where's BYU? What city is it?
That's
can't remember.
Wow. Why can't I remember now?
But either way, the game is at Cougar Stadium.
Provo,
yes, Provo.
Yeah,
and so Provo, Utah. So I'm leaning towards BYU in this one just because of that fact. Oklahoma has struggled before last week. They lost 2 games in a row, Kansas and then Oklahoma State. So I think they can be had as well. I think Keaton Slovis is good enough to go after this Oklahoma defense. I think BYU wins this one. It's going to be close. It's my upset. I'm going to say BYU wins like 31 to like 30. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, Oklahoma, I know relatively same area, but they really are living the thing of there is no place like home because the last 2 road games they've had, they've lost Kansas and Oklahoma State. This one,
they almost lost the the UCF game was at home though.
That was at Norman. Yeah. But I mean, well, even then, their last road game was against Cincinnati, and even then, they didn't look too good.
Yeah.
This one, though, I do think Oklahoma gets rattled, but I just think with the talent they have on offense, they're going to find a way to get the win here. As much as BYU can put a scare, the offense has not been where it has to be to pull this off. They've just been dominated by most of these Big 12 opponents. So I'm going to go Oklahoma winning this one. I'll go with a 38-21 win for the Sooners.
Damn, you think it's going to be a blowout?
I think Oklahoma. I just don't see BYU keeping up.
I don't know. I mean, they kept up with Texas a little bit, so I think they can. That's just my opinion, and really why I'm saying that is because the game is in Provo. If it wasn't there, I probably would say Oklahoma, but I think BYU's got a chance here. Okay, Utah, Arizona. This is a very intriguing matchup that in the beginning of the year you probably would have never even thought twice about, but now it looms large in potentially being Arizona's chance at a Pac-12 championship game berth. I think Utah gets this win because of their defense. I mean, I've been a huge proponent of their defense all year. They've done remarkable things because of that. They've played despite their quarterback situation all year. I think they can stifle this Arizona attack with their quarterback and keep him in check. I think they can keep Arizona to like 17, 20 points. And if that's the case, they just need just a decent amount of play from their offense, which I think they can get because Arizona's defense hasn't been, that great. They've allowed a decent amount of points against teams they've played. So I'm going to say Utah wins. I'm going 24 to like 20. What do you got?
Yeah, this one it's really going to come down to defense. And really this one I feel can go either way because both of the offenses, Arizona has the better offense. Just straight out. I'm going to say that straight out.
100%.
But defensively, I'm thinking back, they beat UCLA, who has a top 10 defense, and Utah is around that range. And it's also still in Arizona, which they beat
Yeah.
UCLA. It was a home game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna go Utah on this one, but if out of all the games, this is the one I could probably be the most raw in. I think Utah, based on the experience of their players, finds a way to win. I'm gonna go Utes winning. I'll go 24-22.
Okay, next one. If Tennessee hadn't lost last week, this would be a huge matchup, but now it's kind of like lost a lot of the luster. Georgia coming into Knoxville to play the Volunteers. Um, you know, I this could be a weird game where it's like, Georgia has a couple of turnovers and Tennessee takes advantage of it and gets ahead early and then kind of rides it out type thing. But Georgia really hasn't turned the ball over at all year. Their running backs don't fumble it. Beck really hasn't thrown that many interceptions. So, like, how do you stop this Georgia offense that is like top 10 in the nation, maybe even top 5? And it's like, you got to get them off on third downs, which they're like number 1 in the country on third down. So it's like, what do you do? I mean, I know this Tennessee defense is not terrible. It's definitely holds its own. They get a lot of sacks and a lot of tackle for losses. Um, you know, I think their offense might be able to do something. They struggled in the second half against Alabama. They only scored 7 points against Missouri. But it could be again that they struggle here, which I think that's likely the case. I think Tennessee struggles in this game. I think they may put up at most 17, 20 points. And I think Georgia puts up like 35. So I'm going like 35-17. What do you got?
No, I'm almost the same thing. The other thing is too is how disciplined Georgia is compared to how undisciplined Tennessee has been this year with the penalties and all that.
Oh, yeah. Huge
If
discrepancy. Yeah.
Yeah, and if Tennessee can only put up 7 against Missouri, who has a very good defense, God help you when you play Georgia.
Yeah.
So I think Georgia is just going to suffocate Tennessee, make it a one-dimensional game for them, and Bulldogs win in a Bulldog-like game. I'm going to go 30-10, Georgia.
Okay. Next one. Another Pac-12 matchup with a lot on the line. Oregon, Arizona State. I think Oregon can win this one pretty easily. I think their offense is strong enough that they can stifle this Arizona State team. One, that they can control the ball and, they make enough plays on defense. Their defense is strong, which, they like nearly shut out Utah and they've done quite well in other games. They played pretty well against that USC offense, and I think they can. I think they can hold the trick plays and the special plays that Arizona State loves to do, and I think they could limit that. I think Oregon probably wins like 31 to like 20. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and I think the difference is between this one and the UCLA game is that Oregon is a much more well-developed, mature team in terms of the players they have right now. A lot more guys have been in these games for longer, and
Yeah.
Arizona's going to do everything they can to win, but I just don't see Oregon letting that happen. I think Oregon's going to win this one handedly. I'll go 35-13 Ducks.
Okay. I wanted to talk about the next one, which is Kansas State, Kansas, but I'm just double checking something real quick. Okay. Yeah. Kansas State still has actually, Kansas technically, it's crazy. Even with, there's like 4 teams at 5-2 in the Big 12, and then there's 3 teams at 4-3. And it seems like there's a shot that all of them have a chance to get into the Big 12 championship. So that's like 7 teams right now with a possible chance, which is just crazy. Okay. So Kansas State. It's in Lawrence. Rivalry game. Kansas State does look good. I will admit, they lost to Mizzou. and lost some other ones, kind of tough. I like Kansas State a lot in this game because I don't know, they're just a team that always seems to be a well-coached team last couple of years. They barely lost to Texas. They barely lost to Mizzou. It was a late field goal. It was like a miracle field goal. And they got beat by Oklahoma State by 1 score. So I think Kansas State wins this one. I like them as a stronger team to Kansas. I know Kansas, offensively they've been all right, but if Bean is not playing and it doesn't look like Daniels either, and if their backup is in there, I don't like their backup. He's not very good. Let me see. I'm actually looking right now, the update on Bean. But said he has suffered a head injury, so I don't know. It doesn't say if he's going to play or not, so maybe they're waiting out. I like Kansas State in this one. I'm going to say Kansas State wins like 34 to like 22. What do you got?
Yeah, I think this one's actually going to be pretty close. Based on the philosophy of the two teams, Kansas, more run heavy this year, and Kansas State has been more aired out. With that being said, I think based on the talent Kansas State has compared to Kansas, I think they'll find the way to win. I think they win in a close one. I think Wildcats win. I'll go 28 to 24.
Okay, next one. I think this is going to be the game of the day. Another Pac-12 matchup, Washington, Oregon State. Now, Oregon State is that team that, I don't think anyone's really talked about all year, which is kind of crazy considering how well they've played all year. And they have a real shot at getting to the Pac-12 championship game, especially if they win out, if they beat Washington and Oregon. So this is a tough game. Like I've always said, when teams come to Corvallis, they come to die. And I think that's the case here. I think Washington can lose this game, but I think they still could get into the Pac-12 championship game, even if they lose this game. So there's a lot riding on the line for Oregon State here. There's a lot riding on the line for Washington as well, because they almost have to be undefeated to get into the playoff. I think this game's going to be close. I think it's like a coin flip. I think either team could win this game. I like Washington more because of Penix more than I like DJ with Oregon State. So I'm going to say Penix is my, deciding factor here, and Adunze as well. They're both studs. I think those two are, the best two players out of either team. And I think they make a difference in this game. So I'm going to say Washington wins in a close one. I'm going to say 28 to 24. What do you got?
Yeah, and especially because it's at Oregon State, it makes it that much more difficult to win, because again, it's where a lot of these, this is like upset city this year. But I think comparing the offense, I think it will probably be a shootout again, because Oregon State has been no slouch on offense. They have had a very good season offensively. Ugalele has had a really good bounce back year, good change of scenery for him. The rushing attack has been effective. But with that being said, I think Washington just has the better version of the offense right now. As good as Oregon State's offense been, Washington has been better. So I think with Penix and with the balanced attack between the danger of either Penix running it or Johnson running it or Penix throwing it, I think it's going to keep the defense off balance. I think Washington gets enough to win it. I think it's really going to be close, but I think it's going to go down to the wire. I got the Huskies winning 35-30.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be close for sure. Okay, last one, Texas, Iowa State. This Iowa State team is real pesky as well because they're 5-2 in the conference and have a real slim shot at getting into the Big 12 championship game. I like what Quinn Ewers has been doing. I've liked him all year. If he hadn't gotten hurt, he'd be right there in the mix for the Heisman. But I don't even think they care because they're obviously they have large goals, and if they keep winning out, there's almost no denying that they'll get into the playoff because one, they'll have the huge road victory against Alabama, which no one has as big as a win right now. I still can't think of anyone else having as big as a win as that right now. Maybe the Michigan Ohio State winner will be that answer there, but I think Texas would have that road victory that no one else would have. And then also their one loss is to a really good Oklahoma team. So, I think it helps there. I don't know. I like Texas a lot. I did see that God, what's the running back's name? 24.
For Texas?
Yeah.
That is oh God,
what
what is his name?
It's I keep wanting to say Bijan, but Bijan's
No,
gone.
Bijan's in Atlanta
Yeah,
now.
he's at Atlanta, but I can't think of the kid's name. But he
Brooks.
Yeah, Brooks. Yeah, Brooks.
Yeah.
He hurt his knee and he's out for the year. So they're replacing a lot of rushing yardage there because he had over 1,000 yards, and it's going to be a struggle. I know they have some talented guys there that can come in and do some things, so they're not going to be completely devoid of talent. I think this game goes a long way also for Richard, I don't know if you saw, I'm just seeing the comments. He says it's going to be raining on Saturday for the USC game, and then he thinks they're going to have to rely on their run game as well more, where UCLA has really good run defense. Yeah, he's true. Oh, he did say Josh Rosen started as a true freshman that year too. Yeah. But anyways, no, I think Texas can do well in this game. I don't know too much about Iowa State because I obviously haven't paid too much of them all year, but this Texas team, I think they're hungry. I think they know what they have on the line. I think they've played in a lot of close games. They're very similar to what TCU was last year, seemingly. It seems like a lot of similarities. I think Texas can win this game. It's in Ames, Iowa, so it's you lean towards Iowa State there, but I think Texas puts enough up. I think they're going to win I'm going to say probably 33 to 28. Close one though. What do you got?
Yeah, I think Texas has been getting lucky. They got lucky against Houston, Kansas State, and TCU, and I think this one is going to be like that. But I think Iowa State, a lot of their wins have been mostly layup games against weaker opponents, and Texas is not going to be that. I think Texas does get off to a slow start, but I think they pull away in the end. I'm going to go Longhorns winning 38-23.
Nice. Okay, that is all of our games that we're previewing. Not a ton this week because there's a lot of cupcake games that a lot of teams are playing bad teams. So next week is rivalry week, so there'll be a lot more. We're going to do a live show from probably USF's campus next week, and then I will be at the Florida State game. And Ian, you're going too, right?
Make it.
What?
I will not be able to make the Florida State game.
Okay. Well, either way, I'll be there. I'll be there to, rep the brand. So if you see me at the Florida State game, I'll be repping the Hater Radio shirt. I'll be hard to miss. I got long hair, obviously, so you can see me from a mile away. But regardless, check us at haterradio.com. Also on all the socials, which are at hater_radio for TikTok, Twitter, Threads, Instagram. For YouTube, it is at Hater Radio. For Facebook, it is Hater Radio CFB. Ian, what are your socials before we go?
Yes, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, at G_Gator_G.
So like, subscribe, tweet at us, comment, everything. It helps the algorithm get us out there as much as you can. We appreciate the support. We have had a lot of support from family members and friends, which we greatly appreciate. Enjoy these games, and we'll talk to you Sunday. All right, take care.